Hi, this is Dustin with Dustin's Dollars. Today I'm going to be talking about AITX, that is Artificial Intelligence Technology Solutions, I think. Ticker is AITX. Today I'm going to be talking about their annual report, their Form 10K that was just filed, I think, on Tuesday. Sorry about that. That is my phone. Before I begin, oh God, let me remind you that I am not a financial advisor or a financial professional of any sort. All opinions that I express in this video are mine and do not represent those of any company or any other individual. I do not hold any position, long or short, in AITX. I never have. In the interest of full disclosure, I do hold a long position in an AITX competitor called Nightscope. So basically, this video should be for your entertainment purposes only, because I could be wrong about everything I say in this video. You need to do your own research before making any investment decisions. So, what I did, this is a continuation of what I talked about AITX in the past. Is going to be condensed all into one video here. Unless there are some follow-up questions, I happily do more if folks are interested. But what I did was I grabbed the actual quarterly numbers from what would be, I guess, their Q4. It's actually ends at the end of February 2022, and I put this in so we can see how they did for the quarter and then also for the year. So in Q4, their revenue, if I did the math correctly here, was $371,000 in dollars. I could format this, but it would take some time. Which was basically flat from Q3. They were at 373 the quarter before, the 371 now. You can see it in the graph here. This is a stack here where it shows, it actually breaks out the sales between their rental activities and their direct sales. And you can see, the sum of those two, which is represented by the red area here, was effectively flat between these two quarters. So it was flat for those two quarters, but yet this is the comparable, the 1 year comparable. If you can see that, this one down here before that major spike up. So it is up significantly year over year for the quarter. And if we look here specifically, this would be these two numbers here. I grab out the calculator to tell you exactly what that is. 306 divided by 101,785. So that 3.6x. So that's a 260% increase, I suppose it would be. So that's obviously really good. That's on trend with what we've seen in the past. The question is going to be, are they going to be able to do another 300% next year? But at least the trend obviously is drastically higher at the current moment. We did also see significant direct sales of their devices as opposed to just rentals. If you look at rentals year over year, it's up, I think, just under 100%. This is the rental numbers here from about 89.5 to 177.5. So that's just slightly under doubling in a year. But although one interesting thing, but the thing to note is this was barely up from the prior quarter. I shouldn't say barely up. It's up like 7% or so. Less than 10% quarter over quarter. So that's not quite the growth rate that you want to see. You can see that they have their biggest jumps between Q4 of last year and Q1, and then what's this Q2 to Q3 in the prior year. So we'll see if maybe there's some seasonality to it. I don't know. But again, it's hard to actually time this stuff, with the impacts of the pandemic and everything. So we'll just have to wait and see the next couple quarters, see how that plays out. And this is what it looks like on a trailing 12 months basis, and that makes it more obvious that this past year has been a major year of growth. As you can see, that they're just only trending upwards, and these are their actual rates of growth in terms of revenue and in terms of the rentals. And you can see the rental growth has been trending just slightly upward, but is pretty flat even quarter over quarter, comparing their year over year revenue growth for the quarters. Now their margins actually have been going down, and this is their gross margins, and I computed this as their revenue minus cost of goods sold divided by their revenue, right? This is as a percentage here, and you can see there's a slight trend down. They're still above 50%, and again, I've covered in the past. I think you have to subtract off another 16% from all of these numbers to get what is their effective gross margin, because they have sold some of their revenue. And we did see that the percent of revenue is from rentals was hovering around this 50% mark. And it's interesting because I've noted this in the past, they do express that they expect higher gross margins from their rentals. And so even when we see these quarters that have substantial amount of direct sales, it's interesting that there doesn't seem to be a correlation between the gross margins in the quarter and the percent of the revenue that was comprised by rentals. So I have not been able to figure that one out. I think that's most of what I wanted to cover from here. Let me go through some notes in the actual 10K. I took some notes for myself. One thing just to note is they did, this is the first time I've seen it, they mentioned supply chain challenges here in this report, that they actually started seeing some impacts there. I didn't see that in prior quarters, so I thought that was, obviously not going to be good for the future if they're feeling the pain there in terms of supply chain. They said it's getting, increased costs, or having constraints in getting the new components that they need, and it's impacting their ability to deliver to their customers. One interesting thing, I hadn't seen this before. Let me see if I can get conversion of accounts from opportunities to clients is low. And so they had a discussion here that they said, hey, we've added a bunch of opportunities to our sales funnel, 311 sales. And, elsewhere, and I'll mention this in a moment, they did disclose that they have about 250 devices. I can't remember their exact wording. I think it was deployed in May of 2022. And so the fact that they have 311 sales opportunities, you can speculate about what their percentage of sales closed is, but you wouldn't need a very large percentage there for it to actually translate into a good chunk of new devices, that is material for the company. But this is interesting to have this discussion here, that they've said that we're not doing a good job of converting. We have a lot of opportunities, but we haven't actually gotten a lot of clients out of that. And they say the reasons for that is that the buyers are afraid of deploying new technology, and that there's some compliance questionnaires. It can take up to 18 months. And so that slows them down from actually being able to get the green light to deploy their devices, and that there's something with the dealers, and that the dealers aren't properly incentivized, or the internal compensation programs don't align with the actual sales. And so that doesn't actually translate into sales for their devices, even when they are, let's say, inserted into a dealer, or that dealer is authorized to sell there. So I thought that was interesting that they actually said that. Here's your count of devices. As of May 2022, the total devices deployed is approximately 250. And they said that for the year, they expect between 250 and 1,250. So that is that's what's saying that they expect to do either between a doubling and a 6x on the company. So, that gives you some range. Granted, I think last year if I recall correctly, don't quote me on this, I think they had said they expect something like 5 to 15x in terms of revenue. And what is it? They actually did, what did I just say? 264% increase. So 3.6x. So take that with a grain of salt, but there it is. Management has put that in SEC filing there. So must have some basis for that. I would expect. All right. Couple other notes here. There is no change in the share structure or the sale of future revenues. I've gone over these in prior videos. These are, significant negatives, I think, for anyone considering investing in the common stock of the company, or at least something to really dig into and understand. I would say it's something you should make sure you understand very, very well before you would ever consider investing in AITX. And there is no change, so there is nothing, that alleviates my concerns with those things. One other interesting bit that they did say here is revenue from device monitoring from RAD partners could over time become up to 15% of company revenues, and there is little to no cost associated with this revenue stream. It's not obvious to me what that means. Hi, someone is on the chat. It's named number 23. It says the 10K was horrendous on the loss. Yeah, the loss is not all cash. But yes, I agree. It is horrendous on the loss. I'll get to that in just a moment. I will get to that in just a moment. Give me a moment. So they did say this is the interesting part, and I have no idea what this translates into. It sounds to me, if I'm being charitable, revenue from device monitoring. It's not obvious to me if this means like monitoring the health of the devices, make sure the devices are working properly, or if this is somebody actually watching, the video, something similar to what Nightscope has in Nightscope Plus, where they say, hey, you may not even need a security guard. We will we will watch all the video feeds for you and respond appropriately as we can. So it's very, very vague, but it doesn't make sense to me if it would be the latter, if it would be the actual, we'll provide you sort of the security guard as a service, that they would say that there's no cost associated with that revenue stream. And I will get to the loss in just a moment, but actually if you skim through this, they're pretty transparent to say, or I mean, granted, they were, I'm sure, forced to stick this in here because of the auditors. If they say, we had negative cash flow from operating activities of about $15 million, right? 14.8, right? That's ridiculous considering their revenue for the quarter was, the revenue for the year trailing 12 months was 1.5 million, right? 1.5 million in revenues, not even profits, revenues, and they have negative cash flow from operating activities of almost 15 million. Some of the loss on the actual, if you read the statements, was overstated because not all of those are cash losses, right? Some of that is they record expenses when they're issuing warrants and such, and differences on some of that accounting stuff. One thing I want to call out before I do just go down there and just ramble for a minute on the statement of operations was also this company partially. Let me get it. Oh, I can't spell. Partially. So there was this huge amount of money, I think, and I think it was up. I believe I compared it to the prior quarter, up almost $1 million. So that they charge almost $1 million in Q4 in consulting fees for research and development to a company partially owned by a principal shareholder. That to me was a bit of a scary thing to hear because, as far as I know, the only principal shareholder is the CEO. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe there is someone else, but that really I think is the only the only one that I would consider to be a principal shareholder. And it sounded like they're paying $1 million in just the quarter in consulting fees to this company that was partially owned by a principal shareholder. So that to me was, again, sort of another risk, another thing that concerns me, and again why I'm not invested. You said hopefully the next 10K is better. I know marketing is necessary. It actually wasn't mostly marketing, right? This was the first time I think that they did call out. That's not the first time, but they mentioned their advertising costs. Advertising marketing costs increased. This is for the year by 131,000, right? So that's just a drop in the bucket in terms of marketing costs for their costs here. When you're looking at a $14.8 million cash loss. And so let me go down to the actual statements here. I'll just talk about that for a minute before I hop off. Oh, one other really, really big thing. Let me call this out. They did extend all the debt that was due in was it due in February and March? They extended those by 2 years, and that is they have these ones number 10. This one was originally due in, I think, March of 2022. They extended that one for $6 million. Right? They didn't have $6 million. That would have, I assume, put them into default. That was part of my original, my original analysis on the company. They also extended, I think this one here, I believe it was, they extended for 2 years, originally due in February of 2022. Then they also extended, I think, this one that was originally due in June of 2022. So now they don't have a whole lot of debt upcoming that's due, right? I believe these are sorted by due date, and they have this note for 300. If you look over the next fiscal year, right between now and the end of February next year, this is the only debt that they have. All right, but flights included with that meetings and shows in Vegas. Yeah, that's actually that's just flights and included with that meetings and shows in Vegas, right? That is under G&A, and that is under sales expenses. Let me go back to where I was. They do break that out. Oh, trade shows and travel increased by 325,000, so 326,000 roughly for promoting. So that's a good call, right? That this plus this, right? That actually comes up to more like maybe $500,000. And so again, it's actually not just one thing. If you want my opinion, there's a lot of costs with the company. This gets to my sort of overall impression. They are growing revenues. Their margins don't look that like they're really improving, but they don't look horrible. They haven't fixed their share structure or their sale of future revenues. But if you look at their actual statement of operations, which I'll scroll down and try to find it real quick, there's a bunch of costs that they have, right? They have interest costs. They have both R&D and sales, all their general, where is it at? I should just search statements of operations. There we go. Sorry for taking this long to find it. But yeah, I mean, they're at 974, right? Let's call it $1 million for the year in gross profits. You actually have to take, I think it's about 16% of that off. That's not reflected here, even though, in my opinion, it really should be. It comes out right off the top line there for the sale of future revenues. I have a prior video talking about that. And so it's even less than this, right? Maybe it's 850K. 850K in gross profits. And then you look at their expenses. That is less than their total R&D. That is, less than a whole bunch less than their general administrative. And then even if you come down to where do they have their interest payments, their interest expense, and then this is inflated. This is weird. Like, you can't actually go off of this because they didn't actually pay $16 million. They have other stuff that they sort of charge as the interest expense. It would take a whole nother video just to go in the details of this stuff and the accounting they have here, but they do pay a good chunk on interest. Let me see if I have my list. And this will be old. Maybe it's this. So I think their total, I had figured out that their total interest or their annual interest payments would come to about $3 million. This was the analysis that I had done at the company at the end of November 2021. So, there's a lot of things here, right? There's a lot of things that are just out of balance with where the company's at. And I know they've said, they said last year, we think we're going to grow revenues by 5 to 15x. This year, they sort of implied by number of devices, I think they're going to 2x to 6x. I'm not invested. That's part of the reason why, is because I still, even if they 6x'd their revenue, and, if this profit was more like, let's call it $5 or $6 million, they're still losing money. And that might be, in my opinion, that might be a reasonable investment if they didn't have the share structure that they have and the sale of future revenues. It just, to me, seems like again, I'm not invested. I'm not giving financial advice to anybody. These are just my concerns and why I'm not invested, because the upside seems pretty limited. And it seems like to invest in the company, you're buying into a very, very tough situation at the current moment. So that is really all that I had to go over today. I know that was probably even still a lot. I don't know if you had any last comments or questions. I'll hang around just for a minute. I do have to hop off pretty soon. But for anybody else who's watching this after the fact, not here live, I do these videos live, usually Sunday through Thursday evenings, about somewhere between 9, 10, 11 p.m. Eastern U.S. time. That's I don't get to do it every night, but I do try to do that on a regular basis, somewhere around that time. So feel free to hop on live if you want to chat. I don't know. Sorry, this is you number 23. I think that is your the name you have on there. If you have any other questions or comments, it looks like you're still on the stream. So I don't know if you had anything else to say. I'll give it a moment because I do think there's a lag time here between my live stream. Oh, hey, someone else. Ladder says, "Hi Dustin, I had a question for you about your content. I'll send it to your email after you're done." Yeah, my email is, you can get it on my channel page there. So feel free to send it to me. I will take a look. Number 23 says, "Good stuff, thanks. Fundamentals look weak, so in OTC you would say opinion ILUS is better." I don't know anything about ILUS. Sorry, I have no opinion on that because I don't know anything about it. Maybe I will jot it down to maybe take a look at. Usually I don't trade OTC stocks. I'll just call that out there. So it's not usually my area of expertise. The only reason why I had taken a look at AITX was because it's a competitor to Nightscope, and as I started doing some content on Nightscope, a number of people kept mentioning it to me, and so I said, hey, maybe I should take a look and see what it's all about. Just because I got so much feedback that I should take a look at AITX, and I did. But yeah, I will jot down ILUS, and I will take a look at that one. So thanks for the pointer. All right, I'm going to hop off. So thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it, and have a good one, everybody.